Hey guys, back again on aircraft this week. You may notice something a little bit odd with this particular boxing, as this technically is not a production kit or production boxing to say, as this is an early copy of Tamiya's 1/48 scale P-38 F&G. I was able to pick up a copy at OrangeCon this year as the Tamiya rep was selling them. So I grabbed one and thought it'd be interesting to take a look. So let's open her on up and let's see how this compares to the earlier Hasegawa and Minicraft we've looked at previously. So I'm going to start with the clear parts. You're given a total of two different styles of middle canopy, as well as an open version of both, which is quite nice. In fact, one of the things to be aware of is that on the F, it's divided into an early and late version, and the G has the same as the late version, which just by looking, I want to say is this version here. But all the clear parts are very nicely cast, very thin and sharp. I'm quite impressed. Similarly here on the front windscreen and back windscreen. Those are all of our lenses and our gun sights, which you get two different versions of. We'll get into that when we look at the instructions. So, next up, we've got our main upper wing and booms and little bit of the fuselage. Again, the detailing on this, and hopefully this will show up on camera, is very fine, very sharp. I mean, like razor sharp fine. Tamiya's done a very good job detailing this thing up, as everything's very subtle, very in scale, if you will. I mean, they've done a fantastic job in that regards. Moving on into the cockpit, again, since we have early F and late F G versions, we have two different front panels to deal with, whereas the rest of it is common to both. Overall, some of the detailing I do feel could be a little bit better in the cockpit. Thing has just ever so slightly a softness to it. It could have been a little crisper in my mind. Though by the time this recording comes out, there should hopefully be plenty of aftermarket options for you to go with. Do get a seated pilot figure, which is a nice inclusion. We also have our lower main fuselage part, much the same detailing. There's a couple other little components on there. Now, moving on to the booms. Now, this is where I think Tamiya was very smart with their engineering, is that they engineered it without this front section on the front of all the booms, as one of the main differences between the F and G versions and the later J, L, and M models is that front intake for the turbochargers. So by leaving that off, they have basically told us that they're probably going to do later versions at some point, as the kit's pre-engineered for that. So that's very smart engineering on their part. Also on this sprue, we got some of our flaps, ailerons, and so forth, and gear bay doors. We also have our turbo superchargers. Outlet there. They do also include the different parts for those, for the late F and G. I'm going to get tired of saying that. As well as the housings that they go into. Now, much the same as the cockpit detailing, I do feel the landing gear detailing is much the same, as it could just be that much better, like ever so slightly. It's the detailing just seems like just a hair bulbous, I guess is the best word to describe it. That it could be just ever so slightly sharper. Now, continuing on, we got our two wing lower halves, as well as our very large single piece tail stabilator, which is interesting that you chose to do this as a single piece as opposed to halves, as a lot of things seemed like that would have been the way to go, but it works. We also have our two props, which are fully just broken down to just the prop itself. If you need to build up the housing, as well as some of the side panels of the nose and various other detailing parts, as well as our cockpit seat. Next sprue, we got two mirror ones for the front intake there, as well as some of the back parts, which again, as I said, since they've broken it down in this way, does highly seem like they're going to do the J model at some point, as since they've broken this as a separate sprue, it would be real easy to think they're going to have it attached on either the other side or as a separate sprue. We're given two styles of fuel tanks, again, depending on model you're building. It's either two of these or one of these and one of these. So that, again, that's something we'll look at in instruction sheets. And similarly, you're given two different styles of wheels for you to build up with. Set that aside so it doesn't go falling. Lastly, we have some more internal parts, including for the main gear bays and nose gear bay. Now, we also are given this very large sprue for our main wing spar, as they thought about that, so we shouldn't have any drooping. And we're also given these for the main gear parts, sections for nose weights, which we do get 3 of them. So we got that right out of the gate. So this definitely should not tail sit if you do it right. Beyond that, we got build up for the main gears, nose gear, and various other odds and end parts for building all that up, including here. Thankfully, they do also include for some of the stabilator and sway braces a left and right marking on them, so that should help identify them. Let me get these back in, and we'll move on to the decals. Now, one other thing I want to add, it does come with a masking sheet for all the clear parts. Given just how complicated some of the paneling is for the windscreens and canopy, them including this in the box is a fantastic addition. Thank you, Tamiya, on that front. Now, for the markings, we get a very nicely done sheet of decals, lots of stencils. They do include the mirrors as decals. That's a nice addition. So that will help. I don't know how well they'll work, but they're worth playing with. Do have your control gauges, various other odds and end markings. Detailing white is a very nice, crisp white. So everything's nicely registered. Reds are a little, I'd say, could be a deeper red, but that's splitting hairs. So overall, decals are a fantastic add. Would have been nice if they included an option with some nose art, but they do give us the dual shark mouth for the booms, so that is a nice inclusion. Now, on to the marking sheets. Now, this is another area where I think Tamiya has done a fantastic job. I can't even fit this fully in frame. They gave us scale diagrams for doing the markings. I mean, these are fantastic just by themselves. I mean, you could use these, if only just for stencil placement, on any 38. I mean, these are that valuable and that good. I mean, just Tamiya really knocked it out of the park on this one. So that's our B options, and this is our A option. Now, this is one area, however, I do have to critique them with a very big way. And we'll see this more once we get into the instruction sheet. They don't include in the instructions, saying what parts are for the F early and for the late F and G models. I've looked through this instruction sheet twice now and can find no example. They just say A or B. And on that, they don't even say on the call out which is which. Now, granted, this is a pre-production kit, so they may have changed it for the production version. I honestly haven't looked. I haven't seen the instruction sheet for it. So this may have changed, and they may have corrected this. So that is something to be aware of. You're going to have to check your sources for seeing which is which. At the moment, I want to say the B version is the early. To look at references and like on my end, I want to say the B is the early version. However, don't quote me on that. I'm not 100% sure on that. Now, as for building this guy, once you've selected which one you're going to go with, build sequence starts in the cockpit and starts building up from there, building into the upper, and then adding on to the main sort of wing spar. After that, it does get a little complicated in a couple areas, especially when you're dealing with which version you're building, making sure you go with which. Thankfully, they do include a pretty obvious A or B call out. As you can see here, the two different styles of superchargers. So that is something to keep in mind. Overall, it's one of these kits that if you just take your time and follow the instructions, you shouldn't have too many issues. But it would have been nice had they been more specific as to which version is which as far as parts are concerned. That is the biggest issue I have with this kit. Other than that, there are some complicated parts, but it does look like they've tried to keep the complexity down, more so to make it a little more, how should I say it, sort of shake and bake, just sort of rattle parts in the box and it'll pop out. Again, complicated area being doing the masking for the canopies. Thankfully, they do have a very detailed guide here included. So bravo to Tamiya on that front. So yeah, once you get through building this thing will build up to be a fantastic looking kit. So overall, barring the issue with them doing a poor job of saying which version is which as far as the parts breakdown is concerned, I do think this is a fantastic kick. If you're looking to build a 38, barring a major difference in price between this and the Hasegawa, I would say go with this. I think it does a better job of presenting the early Lightnings. Though, as I said, I wish they would have done a better job identifying parts. By the time this review comes out, there should be a tremendous amount of options for aftermarket goods for. I would say it's one of those ones, go ahead and also maybe splurge a little and try to make this as much a showpiece as you can. It's one of those kits that screams speed. Take that extra mile on it. It's that good. So that was a look at Tamiya's 1/48 scale P-38 F and G Lightnings. Good kit. Could have been better with a little instruction tweaking, but overall a very, very good kit. So until next time.